Yeah, what I wanted to discuss today is that the Iran and the US image and understanding of each other. Mostly what we see these days is the negative image of Iran in the US and the US in Iran. But when we go back to history, we see that it has not always been in this way. When I studied Iran-US relations, I found some interesting developments. Mm, Till before, I mean, 1953, the US image in Iran has been highly positive. We had the Howard Baskerville martyr in the Constitutional Revolution on April 1909. More than 100 years ago, he was an American student that participated in Constitutional Revolution in Tabriz, and he was killed by the monarchists, and the people were calling him then as Martyr Baskerville. Mm, We had the appointment of Morgan Schuster as financial consultant by the parliament in 1911. Then we had other consultants, American consultants that were trying to help Iran in finance and development. So before, not till the World War II, the U.S. U.S. image in Iran was highly positive. Uh, the first picture is the Baskerville. The second one is the Morgan Schuster. The third one is Milespo, as we call it. I don't know how I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, but he was also another advisor that went to Iran from the U.S. And so before that, the US image was positive. And also the United States played a key role in ending the Soviet Union occupation of Iran after the Second World War, because the US forces were not interested to leave northern part of Iran or northwestern part of Iran. And it was due to different factors, including the UN role played a key role. It was one of the first cases that was raised in the UN Security Council, and also the United States also put pressure on the Soviet Union to withdraw its forces from northern part of Iran. In a way, the US played a key role in contributing to Iranian security and national territorial integrity. So the US image in Iran before that was highly positive. The US was regarded as democratic, developed, supports freedom, supports economic development against colonialism, and also it contributed to Iranian security. So in general, the society was supportive of more cooperation with the United States. That's why gradually the US influence in Iran also increased. However, after the 1953 military coup, the US image in Iran was totally different. It supported dictatorship, supported military coup. Then after the revolution, it supported Iraqi war against Iran, some extremist and terrorist group, as Iranians believe, economic sanctions, cyber attacks, targeting Iranian scientists, military threats, and the last case was the killing of General Soleimani. All these cases are just briefly what damaged the US image in Iran during the past 60, 70 years. On the other side, we have to also pay attention to what has contributed to the US image and also what has prevented Iran from having a positive image in the US. The US image in Iran was better, or somehow still is a little bit better than the Iran image in the US due to at least four important factors. The first one is translation. Most of the, of course, not most, but many books and articles every day are translated from English to Persian, and it helps to a better understanding of the US in Iran. Travelers, a lot of Iranians before the travel ban were traveling to the US, and also because of we have a Iranian community here in the US. So they also had a role. Many people, because the English language is the second language in Iranian universities, many people know English language, refer to English resources, so they are able to achieve a better understanding of Iran. And another factor that has helped the US image has been the education. Many students have come to the United States for education, and also some of them go back, and these, scientific educational cooperations have helped a better image of the US in Iran. None of these factors exist in the US to present a better image of Iran in the US. I was looking for some books that have been translated from translated from Persian to English. I found that there are just few books, not enough, not so many we can't find. I have worked in other countries like Japan and Germany. There are a big community of Iranian scholars, especially in Japan, that they have traveled to Iran. They know Persian language very well, and they have been able to present an independent understanding of Iran to Japanese societies, and also partly it also exists in Germany. But we don't have such a community of Iranian scholars that know Persian language, American scholars that know Persian language, and also be able to translate from Persian to English, different sources. And also, rarely you find any American who have gone to Iran for education and to come back even for Iranian studies. Many people go to other countries or even come to the United States to study Iran, while I do not believe that it's possible to understand Iran without living in Iran, without doing research in that country. So all those factors that contributed to a better understanding of the US inside Iran and does not exist in the US to contribute to a better understanding of Iran in the US. So there is an asymmetric understanding of the US, of Iran in the US. And there is also another factor that is very important. When we want to, that's the influence of others on Iranian in the understanding in the US. Mostly we concentrate on differences, but when I came here, I studied the US Constitution and compared with the Iranian Constitution. What I found was interesting. There are many elements that are common, not just in the Constitution, but in general in the US and Iran. And if you go back and study Iranian Constitution, you find all these elements. Believing in God, importance of science and knowledge, justice, freedom and responsibility, religious freedom, equality, division of power, participation of people, no discrimination, opposition to colonialism, family as the fundamental base of society, self-determination, philanthropy. These are the important values that you find in Iranian, constitution, mostly. You can, if you can read the US Constitution and laws and regulations, you find that most of them you can find in here, because the reason is that both Iran and the US Constitution have received a lot of influence from French Revolution. When we compare religious values, also we see that it is not something that because mostly when it comes to differences, conflicts, many people refer to values, and I do not believe in that. There are lots of common values between Islam and Christianity. At personal level, believing in God, believing in prophets, piety, chastity, modesty, patience, sincerity, these are very important at personal level, both in Islam and Christianity. And also as social values, we have community, serving others, looking for science and knowledge, justice, work, keeping commitments, family. These are very important in both religion. So I don't see that the religion is the problem. And also still, if you, as I mentioned before, both Muslim and Christian and Jews respect each other's and values in Iranian context. And I was reading the Heritage Solutions 2016. Heritage Foundation is a conservative foundation in the US, and they have a lot of influence even on current administration. When I was studying their Solutions 2016, page 93, it says, marriage and family are the building blocks of all human civilizations, and the primary institutions of civil society. If you read Article 10 of Iranian Constitution, it says the family is the foundations unit of the Islamic society. It is the same concept as the foundation of the society. So the family is important for both the religious people in Iran and here in the US. Yeah, when we compare the historical experiences, as I mentioned before, both are multicultural, multi-ethnic societies. The independence has been very important for both Iran and the US. Both Americans and Iranians had revolutions. Both had fought for their freedom and independence. Both revolutions supported also other freedom movements outside of their country. So this is something common that you can find historically between the two societies. Uh, Even common interest in recent decades, we have had the fighting against Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, peace and stability in the Middle East. We are located in the Middle East and we benefit more than the US from peace and stability there. And peace and stability in Afghanistan, Iran contributed a lot to the Bonn Conference and and still recently the negotiation between the different groups in Afghanistan. Iran has been active in supporting them to reach a, a, a peace inside Afghanistan. And also fighting piracy, security of navigation. We need more security in the Persian Gulf than the United States. So these are the common things that from a strategic point of view, from a regional point of view, are common and benefit both countries and the benefits Iran more. That's why we cannot say that even the regional issues are a difference.
I am so grateful for your comments, and I want to see if we have any questions from our participants. You've been very gracious with your time, and you've been also, I think, for me, the most important learning part of this is not the technology, but your graciousness and your kindness in my obviously mixing up the buttons here. So you're a kind man and a gracious man and a good way to build friendship between people, because there was something here, I'm still on the learning curve. Let's check with our questions. Matt's notes that the web is overloaded today. So I think that's true with the sad events that are going on in our country. I think we have a bit of an overload. Everybody's on the web with the tragic events that are happening in our cities. So the good message that you bring of friendship and peace is something that we very much want to pursue. I want to note we'll be posting the part of this that works on the web so we can see your good comments that we've made about friendship between our countries. I also want to note that the last time we spoke, you had noted that you were going to look for movies. So with people being in confinement, with this virus going on, you were kind enough to send me a link to an Iranian movie website. And I've posted that on our webpage, our homepage of commonhumanity.org. So those of you out there, we have posted that on our commonhumanity.org webpage. You can go and find an Iranian movie during your confinement, and some of them have English subtitles. So if you look a little closely under the things there on YouTube, you'll find some Iranian movies there. Let me close with this question. You have spent time here in the US. If there's one basic thing that when you look at the US media, television coverage, web coverage, newspaper coverage, is there one basic point that you say, you know, folks here in the United States just don't get it. They're not getting a true picture. Is there one basic point of what we're not getting through the media at our disposal? What would that be? What would you highlight that we're missing?
It's a very important question because every day almost I receive many papers, I search many papers and articles and look at the news and read them. You know, what I see is that the most important factor that has shaped Iranian image in the US it has not been Iranians and Americans. It has been the influence of others that have tried to define Iran and construct Iran here in the United States. Uh, you know the role of lobbies that spend at least more than $100 million every year in lobbying in public relations. They pay many writers to write on this issue and many people to do research. The opposition groups are active. And you know, these forces that are active and try to push the United States against Iran, they benefit from confrontation. That's why they need to define in a way so that they can benefit from. So Iranian threat that every day we see is defined here in the United States is a big business. It is more than $50 billion business, weapons business every year. That's why there are many groups, writers, scholars that are paid to write and bold the Iranian threat because they need to sell weapons, they need to get the US support to push forward their interests. Let me just briefly mention let me just briefly mention why Iran has been conceptualized as rogue regime, axis of evil, sponsor of terrorism, hegemonic, aggressive. Who is behind all these concepts? Who is using and supporting all these concepts? Look at if you follow the money, according to American scholars, you find that there are some billionaires behind these efforts that try to present a different image of the US. You know that there was some efforts that was done in Washington by some lobbies. Unfortunately, you do not have the image right now that I have in here, but you know the role of weapons companies that try to, and also the customers of the weapons around Iran, that they try to present and defend their interest in Washington and to present a different picture of Iran. So what I see is that these papers, these products that you mentioned are not just American products. They are financed by others in the region that benefit from animosity, from confrontation, and it's part of the other conflicts. But what they have achieved, the wrong conceptualization of Iran have contributed to, and demonization of Iran has contributed to the xenophobia, fear, misunderstanding, and it has had the consequences has been for crippling sanctions, cyber attacks, military threats, travel ban, and these are byproducts of these wrong conceptualization of Iran here in the United States. And what we have achieved, what I mean all parties have achieved, what the United States has achieved from these efforts, nothing. It's unbelievable. When I came here, I didn't have such image of the United States. I had a totally different image of the United States, but what I see is that the United States has suffered a lot from these policies. The US wars in the Middle East has imposed trillions of dollars of economic sanctions. In the area that I live right now, this is a wealthy area that the people are paying a lot of tax every year. But it is 4 years that I go in the streets, and after 4 years of the worst roads that I have ever seen, even in some parts of Iran, I see here in this part of the country, that it's a wealthy part that they pay a lot of taxes. So what does it mean? It means that where all the money of all those taxpayers are going, they are wasted in wars in the Middle East. It has led to destruction of infrastructure here in the United States, and also a lot of casualties in the Middle East. A lot of it has imposed lots of cost on Iran, on Iraq, on Saudi Arabia, on Afghanistan. What I mean is that nobody has benefited from confrontation in the Middle East that they try to sell to the people and get their money and have their support to push forward some kind of sanctions, regime change, these kinds of things that they develop the concepts here to get the support of the people. So the consequences have been devastating for everybody, especially in the United States. Right now, in the management of the coronavirus, you see how it has affected. This is the consequence of long-term engagement in wars in the Middle East and other parts of the world. That's why what I think and what I see is that on the one side, there are free riders that try to push forward the United States toward confrontation with Iran and other countries in the Middle East. On the other side, I see the people who try to, sell the arguments of a threat, a red threat, a green threat to the people to get the support. And finally, the result has been devastating for everyone, especially in the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Sonboli. We have kept you here for a while, and you have been very kind. One really last question from Matt's. Is there a kind of friendship effort that we might build, some way that we might bridge this this difference in seeing each other, some steps we could take to friendship? That might be a good way to conclude our time together.
Actually, what I see is that without understanding, it makes no difference you want to make friendship with whom. If you want to make friendship with anyone, you need to understand him or her. Without understanding, there will be no lasting friendship. Maybe by seeing someone falls in love with somebody, but that does not happen among countries. Countries and the nations need to come together, need to learn each other's language, need to study about each other, need to negotiate, need to have diplomacy to understand each other and to benefit. What I see is that not only there is no effort that contribute to a better understanding, it is completely the opposite. Many people think or talk about the sanctions against Iran. I do not say that the sanctions are against Iran. The sanctions are against Americans because they prevent them from communicating with Iranians, they prevent them from understanding Iranians, and they prevent them from benefiting from a better relations with the United States. So the first target of those who push forward sanctions are American companies and American people. The second target that also it has suffered is Iranians, that they have suffered a lot. So if we want to think about friendship, we need understanding. To understand each other, we need to bring people to each other. We need direct communication. We need travel. By travel ban, by closing the doors, by demonizing, these are the official policies of this country. How we can reach them to that point.
Thank you, Mr. Sonboli.